Hello and welcome to the Aim High podcast. I'm your host, Ben Shin, and today's guest is Ray Lee, CEO and co-founder of Sene. Sene is a unique clothing brand known for its heavyweight tees, FlexTech workwear, denim, and athletic wear. Today, we will explore the way Sene was created and the journey of one of its creators, Ray Lee. Welcome to the Aim High podcast, and thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Ben. Excited to be here.
Of course. So to begin our conversation, the first part of the podcast, we usually talk about childhood and upbringing. Because this podcast is centered around being an Asian American leader in business, it is important to first understand each guest's childhood and upbringing as an Asian American. Ideas instilled within you from your parents, your environment, may have helped you become successful and where you are today. So for the first question, could you explain your childhood situation growing up? Where did you grow up? Did you have any siblings? And what were family dynamics like?
I was born in China. My parents moved here. My mom moved here when I was one. Then my dad came when I was two, and then I moved to the U.S. with my grandparents when I was three. Only child, but I grew up with my cousins. So my older cousin Solomon was like a brother to me growing up. When we first moved to the U.S., his family and my family actually lived in the same apartment in Chicago. And
Well, I was
so,
born in Chicago.
oh yeah, yeah, we
Yeah,
were in Waukegan in the
nice.
early days. Yeah. So yeah, I always felt like I had siblings. We didn't move apart until later in life. So it was really nice to be close to family. And for me, I saw my parents hustle, because they were the first class of students who came out of the Cultural Revolution. They had been studying when they were working on the countryside. They went to college. They worked hard. They were able to come to the U.S. Then they did med school here is kind of what brought them here.
Yeah. And like when you saw your parents and like how did your parents' experiences really influence your situation growing up? Like how did it give you more perspective on work and like success for the future?
I always feel like I'll never be able to work as hard as my parents worked when they
Mm.
came. My mom came, $70 in her pocket. Um, had to beg people to get rides to work. My dad came shortly after, but yeah, they just worked really hard. They were much older than their peers,
Mm.
and for a lot of my childhood, they were pretty busy working. But I think I have I have nothing against them for sort of not being able to be present because they sacrificed so much to give me a better life and give me access and opportunity.
Hmm.
So because of that, I think I see the value of working hard
Mm.
and chasing things and trying to build a better foundation for your family.
Yeah, that's definitely a theme among a lot of my guests, just their parents working really hard setting a foundation for their kids. And like, did you feel any pressure to conform to certain expectations either from your parents when you were growing up or maybe in like the broader community, maybe an Asian community or maybe at school where maybe not so much?
Yeah, I mean, I think in common in Chinese cultures, you have to get good grades, and then
Of
a lot of
course.
times you're supposed to be a doctor or a lawyer.
Hmm.
And my parents really wanted me to be a doctor, especially because they both are doctors, and
Hmm.
that path was never cut out for me. But they originally really wanted me to do that. Then they wanted me to be a lawyer, and out of school, college, I was in consulting, and they were like, "What the heck is consulting?
Yeah.
Why would anyone pay you to tell them what to do?"
Yeah.
So it's yeah, I think there were sort of tried and true paths that they felt like were safer and were
Mm.
the right ways, and there yeah, I think I that was always the path I was going to go on. I had no plans to be an entrepreneur early on.
Oh, so you didn't really have any ideas of being an entrepreneur early. You were gonna maybe go down the one of those ways.
Yeah, I had zero plans. I wanted to be a partner at some sort of firm.
Okay. And were there any specific experiences or events that you learned during your childhood that you believe set some foundation for your success?
I think there's a lot of cumulative experiences. I don't think there were any sort of moments I go back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the point I draw from,
Yeah.
and uh, especially because I think there were a lot of things that I had learned along the way that I had to unlearn once I started building a business because
Mm.
a lot of entrepreneurship is chaos and knowing that. learning, realizing you can be really smart and really competent and still not succeed.
Mm,
Whereas when you are in school, when you are in a corporate setting, there's a set of rules that if you follow, you'll be successful. Like if you're in school, you study hard, you'll get good grades. If you're
mm,
in a corporate environment, you probably put in the hours, you do good work, you'll get
and
promoted.
get promoted. Yeah.
But in entrepreneurship, I think especially for people who've been able to perform really well, it's a brutal slap in the face when you realize, like, wait, it's not A equals B. There
Mm,
is all this stuff that you put your heart and soul into, and it doesn't always go the way that you want. And I think that's what I had to unlearn and realize. Like, I'm so
mm.
used to achieving that. First couple of years seemed super hard,
Yeah.
and that was I didn't know how to process that.
Yeah. And like kind of going on to the second part of the podcast where we talk about your education and early career, like you mentioned that you kind of had this path that you knew you were going to go down to be maybe like a partner. So what was your college experience like at Cornell, and like were you were interested in business at the time but not really entrepreneurship?
Yeah, good question. I was interested in law, and it was very naive. I just felt like that sounded nice. And I interned with a couple of law firms. Didn't really like the work, but it just seemed like a prestigious, reputable job.
Yeah.
And yeah, I had always thought I would get higher education afterward. And so I did a bunch of pre-law stuff. I was studying industrial and labor relations. I was in the ILR school at Cornell, which, was a feeder into law school.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I thought about that for a while, and then I actually also had this big like faith experience in college where so I'm a Christian, and I think I learned a lot about my faith
Mm,
in college, and it transformed my life. And so for a while, I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a pastor or something,
mm,
and or I'll be a missionary somewhere. And then after a while, I realized like faith doesn't mean you go and do religious stuff. Like there's a way to where faith can be expressed in any sort of career. And then I thought about doing like international law. I thought about doing human rights law. And then finally I was like, business is another context where you can do that. And
mhm.
I interned actually with this law firm called International Justice Mission. They're an NGO. They like fight human rights violations around the world. And then my boss there, a lot of these were ex like very successful people in law and media, and then they
Yeah.
went to do this, and they're like, "Hey, the best thing you can do is learn what excellence looks like, and then someday, if you want to use it, take your blue chip education and use it for people who don't have 2 cents to rub together. You can do that,
Mm,
but you should go somewhere where you can learn what excellence looks like." And like, have you thought about consulting? And I was like, "What is that?" And then yeah, I that was my junior year summer. I went back to college. Fall rolls around, I decided to go and apply for consulting jobs. And this
mm.
is sort of right around the market crash in
Okay.
2009 is when I graduated. And yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of this miraculous thing where I like all these people who their whole college career wanted to get these jobs, like didn't get it. And then I thought I bombed my interview, but I got the job.
So that's how you ended up at Deloitte.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and then after Deloitte, why did you move on to Interbrand, and what was that kind of like, that journey like to that role?
Yeah. I think what I saw at Deloitte was that you work so hard to become a partner, and then once you become a partner, you're a junior partner, and then you start all over again. And you don't get more leverage on your
Mhm.
life. You just become you kind of get busier and busier
Mm,
the more senior you get. These
yeah.
people were traveling all the time, not with their families, which I think that's fine if that's kind of the life you want to live. But for me, that's not what I wanted. I wanted the more I progressed in my career to have more flexibility and to be passionate about what I did. And a lot of the work I was doing was around cost cutting,
Mm,
and not something I enjoyed a ton.
yeah.
And I was watching Mad Men, the TV show at the time, and I was like, this is so cool. I'd like to do something more creative. I started looking at advertising roles. I was getting coffee for about half a year. I tried to get coffee with anyone that I was remotely connected to or had a second or third degree connection to that was in advertising. And then as I talked to people, I was like, this is also not as interesting. But then I found out some people, there's this niche called brand consulting where you help companies shape their brand. And I was like, okay,
Mm.
that's strategic, a little bit higher level. Let
Yeah.
me do it. I did it. I started meeting with people there, thought the work was really interesting.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, was able, I found a bunch of people who were in consulting had transitioned into that, into a
Yeah.
specific firm I was in.
Yeah. And what were some of like the key takeaways that you learned from your time there that maybe helped you with the future of Scene and Suitable, I guess?
Yeah, I think at Deloitte, you're doing a lot of classic management consulting frameworks like Porter's
Hmm.
Five Forces. When I went to Interbrand, it was all about how to use design and creativity to solve business problems. So it was a radically
Mm.
different way of thinking about business than I had ever seen. And the idea was instead of trying to solve an outside in approach, can you put the human at the center and then try to think about business solving from like deep human needs and from there, come out to something different. You might arrive at a different conclusion. So, for
Mm.
example, let's talk about custom clothing and how we got here with Scene.
Yeah.
Like the traditional way you might think about it is where a lot of companies landed, which is like, oh, there's this trend around custom clothing. Let's create some technology, and then we're gonna make a company that's all about like look at our like a lot of the messaging is all about like look at how cool our technology is.
Hmm.
It's custom. But then if you think about the relate now let's take like more of a design centered, human centered way of solving the problem. You'd be like, okay, no one wakes up and thinks like, I really want custom clothing. You look at a brand, you're like, that's such a cool brand. Like
Hmm.
that's a world I want to live in.
Yeah.
And but then the barrier is sometimes clothes don't fit the way that you like. So you're like, that looks really cool. You put it on, you're unhappy with how it looks on you, and you feel bad about yourself. You return the garment.
Yeah.
So then the question is, okay, custom is a means to get people to feel really good about themselves and take away the barrier of fit.
Mm.
So you need to create. So step one, you have to like build a really cool brand. Secondly, you need to create a seamless way to reduce the barrier around fit.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
so,
yeah.
yeah, so then going into how you were able to create Scene. So can you tell us the story of the creation of Suitable first and like what those years were like trying to build a retail like custom suit store?
Yeah. Man, I mean, I think for everyone who's like really struggling to get something off the ground, we can be an inspiration because we're not successful out the gate. Like we kind of grinded away for a very long time.
Yeah.
Suitable started because I was traveling internationally for work. I was
Hmm.
in Shanghai for the weekend. A buddy from work said, "Let's go get some custom suits made at the local market." I was like, "Oh, that's a great idea." We get it, and we go there. And traditionally, when you're ordering custom clothing, there's all these fabric books. There's all these decisions you have to make. And he was like, "Ray, I don't really know what to do." I
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, let me design something for you." We did it. I come back to the U.S. Buddy was like, "Hey, I'm getting married. Can you make me all the suits for our wedding?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "I'll order through you."
Yeah.
And then I was like, "I guess I'll just double my cost and I had no idea what I was doing."
Yeah.
And then, but that sort of prompted me thinking, like, we're doing all this consulting for all these big corporate companies. They move really slow. It'd be
Hmm.
fun to just make a brand. And I
Mm.
like clothes, so let's just do it.
And this was when you were at Interbrand.
Yeah.
So
So I was
you were
just doing it
thinking
nights
about
and
making it
weekends.
while you were there.
Yeah, it was just nights and weekends.
Yeah.
Finish work, get home, open the laptop, work, and then it started getting busier. My wife was also working on another business, so she was like, I can go full time and on both, sort of like split her time between the two. So she started doing
Yeah.
that. We opened a small showroom in New York while I was working at Interbrand.
Yeah.
And we took appointments only. Then I moved to part time at Interbrand.
Yeah.
And then finally, I went to full time. And then we were like, okay, there's this opportunity to, we need to start thinking seriously about where we're going to put down roots. And then we decided to move to LA and open up a store in LA.
Mm.
And at that point, we kind of rebranded to Scene.
Mm.
And, but then the store was the same business model, just in a bigger format, beautiful design store, but had no product market fit. Like we wanted to do moderately cooler clothing,
Mhm.
but that was some formal, some casual, but basically our business was just men buying suits for weddings. It's like just another custom suit company with like
Yeah.
moderately more edgy designs.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and then that's I don't know if I want to get into it, but that's kind of where we finally pivoted into what Scene is now.
Yeah. So like then how did you kind of make that transition to scene where you kind of knew you needed to pivot into like something else and maybe like create this more of a stronger like brand identity, I guess, like kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah, man. So I think one was we were running out of cash, and we had 2 months of runway left. I was like, oh crap, this is not going to make it, and then
Yeah.
we need to take a much bigger swing.
Mm.
It felt like there was something unique in the core idea of the brand, but that we just weren't quite there. And we had the initial FlexTech suit, an inkling of it, and
Hmm.
we're like, this suit is it's like a Lululemon fabric type of fabric, four-way stretch. It
Yeah.
was just as the ABC pant was becoming popular in New York, and we're like, it'd be really cool to do a custom suit that was stretchy, luxury performance fabric. We
Hmm.
found a mill in Japan, partnered with them, and I remember even before closing the store, we had the prototype in the store, and I could explain it to someone, and they would get it like immediately. I was like, oh, that's the insight is we can't just sell generic stuff that's custom. We
Hmm.
need to develop really interesting products and layer on the custom part.
Hmm.
So we're like, okay, Hail Mary, let's sublet the store. And like, honestly, like kind of a God thing because the store got subletted so fast. Like we couldn't afford it to be even a month later. Um, and then we relaunched everything on Kickstarter. We didn't have enough money, so I just shot the campaign. It was like my first time doing any videography,
Yeah.
and then it just did so well. Like, just we had never had anything go well.
Yeah.
We launched the Kickstarter. It did about a little over 100,000 in 14 days, which for us at
Wow.
the time was like massive.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing was we were always measuring people in person. Each fitting took, 15, 20 minutes. We
Yeah.
launched it on Kickstarter. It was our beta version of the Smart Fit quiz. And we had all these orders just starting to come in all through SmartFit. And we're like, oh my gosh, like we don't have to do these in-person fittings anymore.
Yeah.
It's finally, it was such a cool moment. It was, our minds were blown. And
Hmm.
yeah, that was kind of,
So that was like the moment scene really blew up.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then after like that, once you had like your, I mean, like your main kind of piece, how did you go then to like build more pieces, build on like that athletic wear, kind of transition away from, because you guys are not only about suits now, but more athletic wear, like
Yeah.
denim, heavy tees. So how did that kind of transition happen, and how was it for you, like trying to make that shift in like the company?
Yeah. Well, I think there were a couple things. One is the way America dresses has changed dramatically in the last couple of years, partially because of COVID. So
Hmm.
when we pivoted, that was 2019, May 2019. We were
Yeah.
killing it. Like the suits were growing so fast.
Hmm.
And then we probably had a good half year, a good 9 months where we were growing super fast.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit. And then all of a sudden, no one was buying our suits anymore. And we were like, oh my gosh, we just dodged a bullet. Are we going to go out of business again? um,
Is the
and
pandemic gonna close you guys?
yeah, I was like, it's so demoralizing. It felt so unfair. And
Yeah.
so we pivoted to denim. We had
Mm.
just found a denim manufacturer and we're like, let's try start selling jeans.
Mm.
And then we started selling men's jeans, and then we partnered with a Peloton instructor, Emma Lawal, and that
Hmm.
also just like absolutely crushed. And then we became primarily like a denim brand for a while.
Mm.
And then COVID happened again, or the country reopened post COVID, and then people started wanting to buy suits. Like we saw like suit ads and all this stuff do better. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
this is a great opportunity. Let's do it. So we relaunched the suit program, and after a while, it felt like the business needed to get more focused. Like up to this point, we've just been more about products.
Yeah.
We're like, let's build a brand. Like we really need to sharpen our brand. Like we already had I think people liked our brand, but we've always been on this journey to get more and more focused with the brand.
Mm.
And so what we did is we like decided to build like first focus in and build a really cool menswear brand and
Mm.
something that was about travel. It was more modern, architecturally inspired, and then partially we found this opportunity to start doing custom tees, and we're like, this is super cool. We can do this in LA,
Mm-hmm.
and we'd always wanted to do more casual wear products.
Mm.
And then we developed our first prototype of like one of the tees that I loved. It took us 2 years before it popped off.
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember, even Mark was like, "Hey, I don't know this tea thing's ever gonna work." But I was like, "This tea is amazing,"
Yeah.
and so I think we're used to sort of having conviction about things that other people would say you should just give up. Like
Yeah.
people that told us to give up on scene like years ago, and we're like, "No, there's something here. Like we're just
Yeah.
not quite doing it right."
Yeah.
The same with the teas. It took us 2 years to unlock it, and now it's the biggest part of our business.
Mm. So what has it been like kind of handling multiple identities of the brand? I mean, it seems like it's shifted a lot along the way. So what's like maybe also your plan for the future? Either be more specific or like what is that brand like profile or identity?
Yeah. So every year the brand's like evolving like quite a bit. And I
Mm.
actually think that's really important. If your brand is not evolving, you're gonna die.
Mm.
So you have to keep evolving. But a lot of I will say that the general trend is a lot of our evolution has been about becoming more and more confident in who we are
Mm.
and being like, no, we can be like. Early on, our garments were unbranded. Like you would never know if it's a scene garment or not.
Mm.
And then we started introducing visual signatures that are unique to us. One of the things is the coastal ribbon. It's like a blue, white, and green stripe.
Yeah.
That's an homage to California. We have our winged horse, which is
Mhm.
the sort of spiritual embodiment of our core brand idea around cutting your path and making dreams take flight, taking
Mhm.
risks and not knowing whether it's going to pan out, but it's better to fly than to not even try at all.
Yeah.
And so we started like putting these pieces of our design DNA into garments.
Mhm.
It's cool that like one of our best selling garments, our tees, now have like the winged horse embroidered on all of it. Like stuff like
Yeah.
that where you're like, are people gonna like it? And then people embrace it. When your design is embraced in the real world, it's like one of the coolest things. So
Yeah.
that's from the design signatures, but then also I think the lifestyle, because fashion is so much about lifestyle in the brand world, and so we've crystallized over the last year this brand idea around performance, luxury, and motion. And
Mm.
you have luxury brands, and then you have that are look beautiful but aren't always comfortable. Then you have performance brands that are more in athletic wear, and we're like, how do we merge those two worlds together?
Mm.
So it's like performance luxury, and then like really nicely made, really high quality, very comfortable, often some sort of stretchy component to it,
Yeah.
designed for people who are on the go. And so
Yeah.
with the core brand idea, it's like pulling from racing, motorsports, from California, like references,
Mhm.
stuff like that. And that's so the brand keeps on getting like pieces added to it.
And like one of my past guests, Ken Yoshimura, the CEO and co-founder of NeuroGum, we were talking about like building his company in like doubt, and he said that one of the things is that doubt never really goes away. You just learn how to handle it better. And I was just wondering, like, what doubts did you maybe have when you were starting Scene, and how have you learned to handle those better over time?
Yeah, I mean, I think um, there's a lot of things around like imposter syndrome, around
Mm.
do I have what it takes,
Mm.
and um, like, are we going to be okay? Is like,
Will we
there's
survive?
yeah, yeah. So there's always these sort of things. I think actually what's helped me is there's a couple different things. One is my family. Like I'm so grateful for my wife. She's been an amazing partner. I have
Hmm.
a 7-year old. He's the best. And I think having them is a really helpful frame of reference of just being like, my life is not my business. And
Mm.
my identity is also not my business.
Mm.
So that's one. I also feel like I've seen my faith is deeply intertwined with the business because I almost feel like we should have gone out of business years ago. Like we had 2 months of runway left when COVID happened. There's all
Yeah.
these different moments, and I really feel like um, as a Christian that this business is a gift. I don't always think this way, but I think in my best moments, I think about the business is a gift. I'm a steward of the business.
Hmm.
Um, that ultimately it doesn't come down to how smart I am or how competent I am. Like the business is a gift that has been given to me. I need to do my best with it. I need to do my best to lead our team, to take care of everyone that works with us and all the partners that we team up with. But it's not like if I look at all the growth and all the success we've had, I wouldn't say like, oh, it's because I'm just this unbelievable leader. It's because of a lot of grace that's happened in my life. So that gives me peace, you know. It sort of I think because I think if you're constantly thinking about am I good enough, it can really be a tough it's a tough burden to carry.
Yeah. And as we move on to the next part of the podcast, talking about your current career and your role as the CEO. So, as the CEO of Scene, what does this role consist of now? And like, what do you do on the day to day or the week to week?
Yeah, my main responsibilities are product and marketing.
Hmm.
So on the marketing side, it's there is we work with a really good paid marketing partner, but we kind of like work closely with developing a lot of assets and
Hmm.
ads for them. I'm involved with thinking through our lookbooks and our like campaigns around our product.
Hmm.
So those are the really big things that basically take up all my time.
Yeah. And from like a marketing standpoint, like, what does like that process kind of look like for you? What are you doing with those ads and like trying to like show what Scene is, I guess, to the world?
Yeah, I think we try to, we want to be product led. So we always think about what are the products we want to release that enhance the world. Like we're launching a golf collection in the summer.
Oh, nice.
So we try to think about what is the world we're building?
Hmm.
How can we do and then what is Scene's unique point of view in that category?
Hmm.
And then how can we create content to support that story? So
Hmm.
we run our process actually more similar to the way engineers run their sprints.
Hmm.
So like we use Jira to manage all of our planning. Jira is like the tool that engineering teams use to project manage their work. So we do the same for marketing.
Hmm.
And yeah, so we're trying to plan months in advance, thinking about content, product, and then ads are sort of a shorter time frame. A product you need to
Hmm.
develop way farther in advance, but ads we're sort of like planning 2 weeks, 3 weeks in advance on ads.
Hmm. Yeah, and then what are some, like you mentioned the new golf collection, but what are some of the exciting projects or initiatives that you are currently working on for the future?
Well, I'll say the one that is live now that's really been fun is we did round two of the collab with Peloton instructor Emma Lovewell.
Hmm.
Emma's half Chinese, so special connection there, and
Yeah.
she's just great to work with. The collection's doing really well, so that's also pretty cool. And yeah, I would say that's one that has taken a ton of work and has been rewarding to work on.
Yeah, and what was that like getting that partnership with her, even like earlier on, like partnering with certain athletes or figures?
It's really hard to get um, the right partnership because it really comes down to someone where their audience is a deep fit for your own company. So we've done a number of these, and they don't always work out. Some have been good, some have not been good. It's really not based on their audience size.
Hmm.
And I think there's a lesson in life which is just there are some people who are really big names,
Hmm.
but they can't sell product. And then
Hmm.
there's some people who are very more niche and they can move a ton of units.
Yeah.
And sometimes the people who are bigger names are very respectful, and then sometimes they're very rude and have
Mm.
bad teams. And you kind of want to find your own tribe and your own people that work well, and
Yeah.
have respect. Sometimes the pedigree or the reputation can make it seem intimidating, but yeah, you want to work with good people.
Yeah, and from the like new golf collection aspect, like what's it like maybe creating pieces in maybe a sector that you haven't really explored as much yet? Like you've done like the heavyweight tees, the suits, but like going into golf and like that collection, how is that different? Yeah.
It's not too much of a stretch because we already do some athletic wear, and we know
Yeah.
a lot of our customers golf because they'll say like, "Oh, I will always wear this thing when I golf." I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, it feels like a natural extension into our existing customer base and what they're already doing.
Hmm.
So it's not like a net new audience expansion. It's more of a product line extension into something that is already in the life of our customers.
Mm.
So from that standpoint, I think it's easier than if we're gonna do ballet slippers that have nothing to do with what we do.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's like some brand work around. Okay, what is um, how do we take our core brand and have a unique point of view? Because I don't want to go in there and just do what everyone else is doing. It's kind of
Yeah.
boring. There's no point. Like, why should we exist in there? We need to have some really interesting point of view on fabrics. Like we've always done something unique on fabrics. There's some sort of fabric innovation.
Hmm.
And then, is there some sort of design element that we can pull through? Like we have to go and look at a lot of like archival stuff around what people do in golf. I'm personally not much of I don't really golf, but my
Mm.
co-founder Mark does golf a lot. So he's been much more involved in this process, which has been fun.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll suggest things and he's like, golfers don't do that. And I'm like, okay. Yeah, so that's interesting to have that happen.
Hmm.
But it's been cool. It's been really fun because I normally sort of do all the design, and this time Mark has done like a lot of design work for it,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
so it's
And
been
what
fun
would
for me.
yeah. And what would you say has been the biggest win for the company so far?
The biggest win.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I think being in business is a win. I think I really like our team.
Hmm.
Sometimes when you build a company, you have all these issues with your team, and then you hear about later in the news.
Yeah.
But I really like the people I get to work with. That's probably the coolest thing. Like I think you have to love what you do regardless of what your numbers look like. I
Mm.
think if you only like your business when you're growing, that's a problem. you know and
Yeah.
I also think if your employees are only motivated to work when you're growing, that's also a problem. Like how do
Mm.
you build a culture where people just love like what they do and they love working with each other?
Yeah.
That's, I think, how you get something that lasts.
Hmm. And like for you building your team and like that culture for seeing like what are some of the things you look for when you're hiring different people?
Yeah, I think work ethic is huge. Like being able to work really hard,
Mhm.
and but do it in a way that's not just about like I'm here to put in hours, but more about I just love what I do, and I think about it like all the time. Like Santi from our team, she was like, I was just out and I was at this vintage store and I saw this hat and I was like, this would be great for us. And I'm like, wow, I appreciate that, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the thinking, and then the generosity of spirit of like how do we look out for each other.
Mm.
So hard work, thoughtfulness, and then the looking out for each other.
Hmm.
Yeah, we don't. We're pretty relaxed in. We try to build a culture where we don't need to stay on top of people. Like,
Mm.
but we only that but it means we have to really be careful about who we bring in,
Mm.
because if you have people who slack and just are riding on the coattails of other people, that poisons the culture. And also,
Mm.
we avoid people who are, just sort of not nice to other people. Yeah.
Yeah, and like as the CEO and kind of like the leader of like the company, like what is like your leadership style and how you try to be a leader for your company?
So Mark and I split the business in half. Mark's my cousin and co-founder. So
Hmm.
we have our own teams, but I think our general thing is our belief is that one of our values is one body, many parts.
Hmm.
And so the idea is that we are all part of the same body, and we're all different parts that are functioning to support the body. And it comes from like a Bible verse, and the idea was that there is no part that is superior to the other parts.
Mm.
When I've worked in previous companies, there's always like a part of the org that is more valuable than the other, so they get all the privileges.
Mm.
And it was very important to us that no part gets priority over the others because, for example, like our warehouse team, they are just as valuable as our marketing team.
Mm.
So I think like yeah, certainly certain parts have more impact on top line,
Hmm.
but everyone's important, everyone has value, and I think that's been a core thing for us is just treat people with value and dignity, regardless of their function.
So like everyone plays like a very meaningful role and valuable role for the company as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah, and where do you see Scene in like the next 10 years? What's your dream vision for Scene?
I think a lot of it. So my dream would just be the company is we make really cool products that people love.
Mm.
Um, in terms of how I don't have a specific revenue number, but I think I'd like to keep growing.
Yeah.
I'd love to see us in other countries, and it would be cool to have some kind of retail footprint as well.
Mm. So like maybe go back to like where you started from with Suitable.
Yeah, maybe. I have some PTSD about it, but I think having some retail would be cool.
Yeah, that could be like a whole full circle story. And moving on to the fourth part of the podcast, being an
Yeah.
Asian American in leadership comes with its own sets of challenges. So, what were some of the obstacles you may have faced in your industry, particularly due to your background, if you have faced any?
I think early on when we were trying to raise money, there were some people who I think, we always kind of felt like, oh, why are these two Asian guys like trying to do a fashion brand? Because there wasn't a lot of representation of Asians in fashion. I think that's changed a bit, and just
Yeah.
even culturally, it feels like it's changed. But that was some of it. I also think when we were raising money, we've raised about 2.8 million.
Hmm.
When we were raising money, you kind of definitely saw that, um, and especially from the background that we came from, it was harder to access capital,
Mm.
and there's also unique. I think there's unique dynamics actually being Asian and in business because there's different types of Asians and how they will relate to other Asians in business.
Mm.
And unfortunately, sometimes what I saw was um, Asians were there. Like a number of times I interacted with Asians who were less helpful in
Mm.
things like fundraising because it was they're kind of like very nervous about looking bad
Mm.
because they're like I'm already Asian, and so there's a little bit of a scarcity mindset thing,
Mm.
which I would see. So I think it was twofold, but you just can't spend a ton of time thinking about it because if you gotta just think about
Kind of have to
executing
block
it.
it out.
You have to block it out
Hmm.
because otherwise it can be debilitating to be so frustrated by those things.
Yeah, and can you maybe go on more about that scarcity mindset where maybe they weren't as helpful or
Yeah, what the scarcity mindset to me is that you think there are very limited seats at the table,
mm.
and you finally got a seat at the table, and and you're like, and you're keenly aware that you're Asian, and there's not a lot of Asians at the table. So then, when you need to make introductions for fundraising, you're like much more nervous doing it for an Asian
Mm.
than you might be for a white person.
Mm.
Um, there is Yeah, and then I think for a number of years I saw a lot of this talk around in the Asian business community around, like, hey, we're here to celebrate each other, but then in practice it doesn't happen as much.
Mm.
Whereas I actually think if you look at some of the other communities, I think some of the other ethnic communities are better at it than the Asian community.
Mm.
So I mean that's my experience, right? Like I think
Yeah.
everyone has had different experiences, but I have always found it interesting that I'm talking about the Asian American community, not Asians in
Yeah.
general. But I have found that a lot of our allies that have been incredibly effective for us have not been Asian,
Mm.
which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to like be aware of that and like go against that
Yeah.
experience that I've had myself.
Yeah, and like when talking to Bing Chen at Gold House, he was saying how one of like the biggest problems was how a lot of Asian Americans sometimes tend to like compete with each other, often like not building each other up, but like tearing each other down.
Yeah.
So I was like, that was like one thing that kind of really connected to like that scarcity mindset, that you
Yeah.
just mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's right. I don't think it's meaningful to help someone. Like, it's easy to help someone if there's no risk to you, but
Mm.
you're actually helping someone when there's something on the line for you. And I think that's where it matters.
Yeah. And like on the flip side, like what role has your cultural background played in shaping your leadership style and perspective as a business leader? And how have you found ways to use your identity as like a strength in your career?
I think that there's a lot of emphasis on taking care of people, taking care of the community. It's not just about your individual units. So there's this broader idea of taking care of people. I think there's a lot of values around hard work, around family that my parents have instilled with me, which means like, how can we look out? I don't think it's unique to Asians, but certainly those strong family values and work values are something like I carry with me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also think just being aware of representation
Mm.
and making sure that we're casting appropriately has also been
Mm.
important.
Yeah. And as we move on to the final part of the podcast, talking about advice and inspiration, looking back on your journey, what's one piece of advice you wish you had when you were first starting Scene?
I think one of the big things is knowing what level in the because whenever you launch a business, you have all these beliefs and core assumptions around that are driving the business, right? Like you have beliefs around the human insight, beliefs around your business model,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to separate the different layers. And
Mm-hmm.
so early on, I think I had high conviction that there was a human need around fit, but I didn't question the underlying business model early enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably been the biggest thing is just you have to understand all the different levels of the building blocks of assumptions that you've put into your business. Like, what is the human need? What is the channel that we're using to reach these people? What's the core message? What's the core brand? What are all these different levers? And then you get to question every single lever. And early on, I was kind of thinking too small instead of going to the top levels around assumptions. And I think because of that, it took us a while to figure it out. Now, obviously, I think our challenge has been we've tackled a pretty meaty challenge that a lot of other companies have failed at doing, and I think
Yeah.
we've had some pretty good success at. But it just goes to show like you have to look at a problem in so many different ways in order to get to the right solution. And the harder the problem, the more you have to dissect it.
Mm.
That's probably the biggest thing that it's been for me.
Yeah. And mentorship can play a huge role in one's success. And did you guys have any key mentors, or key role models when building Scene or just helping you go along your journey?
Yeah, I think actually I've had the opposite problem, which is
Mm.
I think for a lot of my life, I like to ask people for advice on things.
Mm-hmm.
And you get to a point in business where you realize that um, no one has the answer for you. You want someone, you're like, someone just tell me what the
Yeah.
answer is. And then you realize like no one has it. You got to figure it out.
Mm.
And so I think I've had this journey of learning when you need to ask for advice and when you don't. Instead
Mm.
of just being like, okay, this person told me X, so I'm doing X.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's interesting. It's actually, I've had no mentors that I can be like, oh, they made a huge difference for us. It's actually been learning to stop asking for advice so often.
That's really interesting. I've never heard anyone say that before. So it's like really learning about like knowing when to ask for help and when you need to kind of just figure it out on yourself almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an element of one, like, what can this person realistically give you? Like,
Hmm.
can they, a lot of times in business, they can't give you the specific solution. So, can they give you, is there a pattern recognition piece? which is I've seen XYZ happen in this industry, so this thing translates for you. Maybe they can give you motivational advice that's good for employee things,
Yeah.
or some sort of like softer things.
Hmm.
So you have to think about what you're doing, and then you also have to think about why am I trying to get advice? Is it because it's makes me feel safe? Yeah, there's good and bad reasons to ask for advice.
Yeah. And how would you define success now? And how has that definition changed since the beginning of your career?
I think in the beginning it was all just about growth, and now I think it's really about, and I think this is changed actually even in how investors look at business, which is about like building a sustainable business
Mm.
that is. And in the past, it was all more about like an external thing. It was about like how can I grow it to be super big, how can
Hmm.
I look awesome from the outside, and now it's
Who
really
doesn't
about
want to look awesome?
what's that?
I said, who doesn't want to look awesome?
Exactly, exactly. Um, I think a lot more now about how can I give a good life to my employees.
Hmm.
So I think if I can do stuff that's creatively rewarding for me,
Hmm.
that everyone's having a lot of fun doing, that's providing a good life for people, you know, that's what success looks like to me.
Hmm. And if someone is wanting to like start their own company or start their own business, like when do you think is like the right time, or is there even a right time, or do you have to just go all in? What do you think?
There's no right answer to this. I think you have to count the cost, which is it is one of the hardest things you'll ever do.
Hmm.
Um, there's going to be a lot of not everyone's cut out for it. Most businesses don't make it. So you have to think about why you want to do it. If you're like, hey, startups sound cool. Actually, I want to do it. I think it's a pretty terrible reason. You have to love the category you're in,
Hmm.
and yeah, you have to love it so much because there are going to be days where there's going to be there's a lot of days where you like feel amazing and you're on top of the world, but then there's a lot of days where it sucks. So you have
Yeah.
to be like, this work is so cool, and I care a lot about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's the way you sustain it over a long period of time.
Hmm. And
I
for the
love
last, yeah. And for the last question of the podcast, if you could leave listeners with one takeaway about building a meaningful and impactful career, what would it be?
I think you need to I think for it to be meaningful, you need to define like what it means, like what your values are and what your vision for your life is. The
Hmm.
career sits within a context of a larger life around like your work is mixed in with family, mixed in with legacy,
Hmm.
mixed in with your community. So you need to have a really clear vision of your life, and then how does your career fit in? Um, I think if it's just about money or success, or so many people just do things without really knowing why they're doing it. There's like deep needs to prove something to themselves. They have a chip on their shoulder. Their parents
Hmm.
want them to live a certain way. Um, you have to untangle all that stuff and find out what your vision for your life is, and
Hmm.
then just do it. Don't wait. Too many people wait.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Really, really love talking about Scene and that whole journey, and then especially those pieces of advice at the end. So, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. This is great to be here.